When was the last time you did nothing for someone else? When was the last time you let a message sit unanswered, not out of rudeness, but because you needed that moment for yourself? When was the last time you said no, without explaining yourself, without apologizing, without feeling the slow creep of guilt that follows you for days? If you can't remember, this video is for you, because there is a version of you that has been so consistently available to everyone around you that you have become almost completely unavailable to yourself. And today, we're going to explore what happens psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, the moment that changes. Welcome to Enter Self, a space for those ready to go inward. Today, we're exploring one of the most profound and least understood acts of self-reclamation, the decision to stop being endlessly available. This is not about becoming cold. It is not about playing games or withdrawing to gain power over others. It is about something far more important, the rediscovery of yourself. Using Carl Jung's framework of psychic energy, the concept of the temenos, and modern psychological research on boundaries and emotional depletion, we are going to unpack why your availability may be the very thing standing between you and the life you are meant to live. Part 1. Jung's concept of psychic energy. To understand why availability depletes you, we first need to understand how Carl Jung viewed human energy. Jung did not see the human psyche as an automatic machine that simply reacts to the world around it. For him, the mind was a living energy system, dynamic, finite, and deeply purposeful. He called this energy the libido, but unlike Freud, who defined libido as purely sexual energy, Jung saw it as something far broader. For Jung, the libido was a generalized life force, a psychic energy that powered every thought, emotion, decision, and creative act a human being was capable of. And here is what makes this profoundly important for your daily life. A healthy psyche conserves energy. It knows when to say no without guilt, when to remain silent without feeling cowardly, and when to observe before acting. True power isn't in reaction, it's in choosing when and how to engage. Every time you respond immediately to a demand that could have waited, every time you absorb someone else's emotional crisis as your own, every time you show up fully for someone who would never do the same for you, you are spending psychic energy that belongs to your own growth, healing, and becoming. And the account eventually runs empty. Part 2. The wound behind the availability. Here is where Enter Self goes deeper than most conversations on this topic. The question is not just, what does constant availability cost you? The deeper question is, why do you feel compelled to be available in the first place? For most people, the pattern of endless availability did not begin as a choice. It began as a survival strategy. Jung's research reveals that highly empathetic people, those most likely to give their energy endlessly, are often unconsciously driven by unresolved childhood wounds. The empath archetype is rooted in psychological complexes formed by childhood trauma. Common patterns include the wounded healer, the martyr, and the orphan roles that are adaptive responses to early emotional neglect or instability. In other words, if you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, where you had to earn attention, where keeping the peace meant abandoning your own needs, then being endlessly available became your unconscious definition of being worthy of love. You didn't learn to be available. You learned that your availability was the price of belonging. And until that wound is seen, clearly and compassionately, no boundary strategy in the world will hold. Because the deepest part of you will keep believing that withdrawing means being abandoned. Part 3. The temenos, Jung's sacred inner space. Jung introduced a concept that I believe is one of the most beautiful and practical ideas in all of psychology. He called it the temenos. Temenos is a Greek concept meaning a sacred enclosure, like a temple set apart from ordinary life. Jung borrowed this idea to describe a protected psychological space, a sacred inner container where transformation could safely occur. He considered it the space where the unconscious could finally emerge without being overwhelmed by the demands of the outer world. In practical terms, Your temenos is the space you create when you become less available. It is the quiet Sunday morning you protect, the phone you put down, the conversation you choose not to engage, the boundary you hold even when it feels uncomfortable. Every moment of chosen unavailability is an act of building your temenos. And inside that sacred space, something extraordinary begins to happen. You begin to hear yourself again. The parts of you that have been silent under the noise of constant obligation start to speak. Your real desires, your authentic needs, your true feelings about the life you are living. The temenos is not selfishness. It is the prerequisite for every form of genuine self-discovery. Part 4. What changes when you pull back? So what actually happens in your relationships, in your psychology, in your daily experience when you begin protecting your energy? First, your relationships reveal their true nature. When you stop being perpetually available, emotionally, physically, and psychologically, the world around you enters a kind of recalibration. People who are accustomed to your constant presence begin to show you who they really are. Some people will respect the shift immediately because they valued you, not just your availability. Others will become uncomfortable. They may push back, guilt trip, create urgency where none exists. And that discomfort is information. It tells you exactly how the relationship was structured and whether it can survive being built on something more mutual and honest. Second, you stop attracting dynamics that drain you. Jung believed that our outer relationships reflect our inner psychological state. If certain patterns keep repeating in your relationships, it's not random bad luck. Something in your own psyche is attracting or allowing these dynamics. Unresolved emotional wounds often attract people who will reactivate those wounds. As you build your temenos, as you heal the wound that made constant availability feel necessary, you naturally stop attracting the dynamics that fed on that wound. Third, your creativity and clarity return. When psychic energy is no longer being continuously drained by unnecessary obligations and emotional labor, it flows back towards you, and with it comes something many people in cycles of over-giving have almost forgotten. The quiet, clear sense of who you are, what you want, what truly matters. This is not a luxury. This is your birthright. Part 5. The difference between healthy withdrawal and emotional shutdown. Here I want to make a distinction that is absolutely essential. If a boundary becomes too rigid, a person can become overly repressed or emotionally numb. And this is not what we are talking about today. There is a profound difference between building a temenos, a sacred inner space from which you can love more fully, and building a wall, a defense mechanism that keeps everyone out and yourself locked in. The temenos is porous. It has a door. You choose who enters and when. It is a space of self-restoration that ultimately makes you more present, more loving, more genuinely connected with the people who matter. The wall is different. The wall comes from unhealed wounds, from bitterness, from a decision that vulnerability is too dangerous to risk again. Jung saw the mature, boundaried person as an emotional alchemist, someone who transforms pain without losing self. He urged people toward conscious engagement, not martyrdom, and equally, not emotional shutdown. The goal of protecting your energy is not to become unavailable to life. It is to become fully available to yourself first, so that what you offer others comes from wholeness rather than depletion. Part 6. How to begin. So how do you actually begin this practice, especially when the wound that drives your overavailability is still healing? Practical ways to protect your energy include consciously choosing silence over reaction, setting boundaries by saying no when necessary, declining draining conversations or commitments, creating time away from devices to nourish your inner self, and releasing the need to defend your worth to others. But beyond the practical, here is the deeper invitation. Begin noticing the moments when you say yes and mean no. Not to judge yourself, simply to witness. Every yes that belongs to someone else's comfort at the expense of your own truth is a withdrawal from your own psychic account. Begin treating your attention as sacred, because it is. Your attention is the most intimate thing you can offer another human being. It deserves to be given consciously, not leaked away through obligation, guilt, or the fear of disappointing people. Begin asking, what would I do with this energy if I kept it? Not as a selfish question, as a self-discovery question, because the answer, when you sit with it honestly, will tell you more about who you truly are than almost any other question you could ask yourself. There is a version of you that exists beneath the roles you play, beneath the obligations you carry, beneath the endless availability that has kept everyone comfortable except you. That version of you has been waiting, not impatiently, not with resentment, just waiting, quietly, in the sacred space you haven't yet allowed yourself to inhabit. When you stop feeding the roles others have assigned to you, something remarkable happens. You step into sovereignty, not the sovereignty of power over others, the sovereignty of finally being present to your own life, your own becoming, your own truth. Jung spent his entire life mapping the journey inward, and at the center of every map, every framework, every archetype, every concept he ever developed was the same essential invitation. Come home to yourself. Your unavailability to others, when it comes from this place, is not a withdrawal from life. It is a return to it. If this video gave you permission to take up space in your own life, share it with someone who needs that same permission today. Subscribe to Enter Self. Every week we go deeper into the psychology of who you are and who you are becoming. Our video on the shadow self is linked right here. It will give you even deeper context for everything we explored today. Until next time, keep going inward. The most important person waiting for you is you.